This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
When we go in there and we got to consult with them and we figure out what they're doing wrong and we figure out what they can be doing right or what they're doing right and they just don't know it, we'll shine the light on that.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois. This week we've got Chris Stevens of Eurotech Classics, and he's also the co-host on a new show on Discovery Channel called Garage Rehab. They've had only a couple episodes out so far, I think 3. I watched the first one online, and I haven't had a chance to watch the second one because I actually don't have cable. But the show is very interesting. Obviously there's a lot of stuff that is typical with the Discovery Channel shows, a lot of drama. But the premise of the show is going into shops and struggling shops, I should say, and helping them out, reestablishing like a working business, cleaning them out, and that sort of stuff. And after watching the first show, it's really cool to see that all the stuff that we talk about on this podcast, on our Facebook group, all that stuff is very relevant in what they did in the show. And if you just kind of ignore all the drama that's built into it, it's exactly what we're looking for. So, Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kevin. This is a really cool opportunity to be part of this show, and I like being something that's kind of targeted right now because you're right about drama and TV, and I know what all of our garage owners, mechanics, car guys, gearheads, we all look at these shows a little. Well, we don't know. We never really get to hear the ins and outs and how much of it is actually true, or are you really helping these guys? And I'm glad to be here to kind of clean the slate on all of this.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and actually one of the I've seen the previews for some of the upcoming episodes, and one of them is a shop that we know in Oklahoma City. I think it's Able Racing, so I'm assuming that's going to be one of the episodes coming up eventually. So it's it's obviously you're doing legitimate shops, and so that's kind of cool. And so let's go ahead and get started first. Before we talk about the show, I really want to hear your background. Why don't you go ahead and get us started? Like, when did you get involved with cars? What really kind of grew your passion for doing this sort of stuff?
Well, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned passion because I think any automotive guy, if we go into the automotive business, you pretty much rely on passion. I don't think we really go after money for this business, but we get here because of the passion. If we can make money off of it, that's just kind of like an added bonus. So where it started from was pretty much all the way back to when you were a young kid. I had an older brother. I still have an older brother and a father that just were car guys, car nuts. My mom, she was vice president of the Capital Area Alfa Romeo Club in the late 70s. And my father sold, sometimes from exotic cars to selling Subarus. So he worked at dealerships and then started his own independent shops in New England. While I was still living in Maryland, they were divorced at the time. So I'd go back and forth, and my dad was the car guy, and I was living with my mom. And I don't know, I guess once I started transitioning from like your BMX bike to a car around 15 years old, I started looking at interesting cars, and I probably should have ended up with like a Volkswagen Jetta or something, but my father was like, no, we should look at some, like, he was into Alphas and Triumphs and MGs, and we looked at like anything that was kind of cheap to rebuild, something that it would get my hands dirty and kind of get me in the scene and some pride and ownership. So I started looking at those Porsche 914s, which was kind of like a collaboration of a Volkswagen and a Porsche. And in the mid-90s, those cars were way more considered a Volkswagen at the time. So you could pick them up for like literally $100, $200. So I used to search around neighborhoods, and these cars were around. They were sitting around, especially in Maryland. And we picked one up. It took me about 2 years to restore. We sanded all the paint off it. We converted it from fuel injection to carburetor, because in 75, the fuel injection system was pretty nasty. So we converted over to dual carbs, and we got the car running. So by around junior year high school, I started driving around this 75 Porsche 914, which was awesome. But remember, this car didn't have defrost. It didn't have heat, AC. It had roll-up windows. It was pretty much driving around like a soda can. I loved it, but yeah, it left me stranded multiple times. And that's what taught me how to work on cars yourself. And doing that just in a driveway. I'm sure we've all pulled transmissions and done clutches and head gaskets in your driveway, from townhomes to, homes with HOAs and stuff. And
right.
We did it all because that's just how we did it. So I started with these Porsches and then kind of got into the Volkswagen scene with the like the GTIs and such from the 90s. And I tell you, those were great cars. They're a little safer, and they did have some of the amenities that I needed for a daily driver.
That would have been the Mark II, Mark III generations.
Exactly. Yeah, I started. I think my first Volkswagen was a 1991 Mark II GTI, which was cool because it was the 8-valve, so it had the non-interference motor like a 16-valve, but it had like the little red pinstripe around the grille, the 4-round headlights, had like the teardrop rims on it. It was a great car. It was awesome. And the 914 at that time, I think I sold it and got the GTI. Drove that around for a while. So I upgraded to like one of those GTI VR6s from 1995. And let's see, finished high school. I was taking a lot of tech ed classes because, a true car guy, I don't think we can really sit still. I think we do a lot with our hands. That's just kind of how we work. We're visual learners. I don't know if we could really listen very well. And so in school, I really took off on anything that was either math or wood shop. And I think I was in advanced tech ed class through junior and senior year, just kind of working with my hands. So it was great because my shop teacher had an MGB. So we would always talk about cars.
Okay.
And I think you're already kind of sensing that I'm into European cars. Hence the name of my shop, Eurotech Classics.
Yep.
That kind of derived from the family tree there. So anywho, finished high school and then started taking classes at a college called Montgomery College here in Maryland. And I started taking business classes. I really liked hearing how people made their first $1 million and how they did it, and the entrepreneurs, and how grocery stores were ran, how hotel management was done. It was really an interesting class rather than history, which I like history, but geez, after 4 years in high school of it and then another 2 years in college, it's like there's only so much. If I'm not interested in it, I'm not interested in it.
Right.
And it's like it's hard to pay attention. A little fun fact: while I was in college, my father was taking classes with me in the same class.
So he was in your class, not like at the same school. He was taking the same classes.
In my class.
All right.
He graduated from Kutztown University. I don't know, before I was born, but he wanted to go back to school.
Okay.
He's a lot like me. He just can't sit still, and he wanted to go back. He saw me doing it, and he wanted to be a part of it. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I'd sit down. There's my dad already made friends with the professor, getting straight A's and just killing it, And where my focus was somewhere else. And at that time I was working at I worked at a lot of dealerships, Toyota dealerships, Volkswagen dealerships. But then I was a commercial manager for Advanced Auto Parts.
Okay. The chain, right?
The chain.
Right. Okay.
And I think they used to be on the East Coast. They used to be called Track Auto, but then they went to Advanced Auto Parts. They were paying pretty well. I got to admit, it was a pretty easy job. They were really flexible on hours. And what was funny was at the time, my brother, he was a master technician for Volkswagen at the dealer. And he starts telling me, hey, I'm thinking about opening up my own independent shop. Where I was a little more focused on transferring over to a university at the time, because that's where all my friends were, and they were all doing the big college thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cool. But he needed my help, and I knew that it was going to be a family business at the time. My father was still around, so he kind of helped us too. And we said, let's do this. We didn't have much capital. So that's one of the things I want to talk about is what does it take to really open up a business? A lot of people think I need a big diesel truck. It's got to be brand new. I need a big trailer. Got to be a big trailer, dual brakes, dual axle. I need a 5,000 square foot shop. I need brand new lifts, an alignment rack, and a dyno. No, that's a good way to get yourself in credit and go out of business in about 3 years.
Yep.
I would say, even if you have the money, hold on to it, because you never know which direction your shop really is going to go. Let's say you do tune Supras, or you really love Mitsubishi Lancers or Ford Mustangs, but all of a sudden you're getting a lot of Chevy customers, or you're getting a lot of Jeep Wrangler customers. I don't know. It depends on the demographics, where you're living at. What, are you in a place where they're drag racing? Are you in a place with the road racing? And I'd capitalize on that and really don't be so close-minded. Don't be a Ford guy. Don't be a Chevy guy. Don't be an import guy only. If you got somebody that all of a sudden you're in a big commuter area where everyone needs brake pads and oil changes and scheduled services, go after that. That's your bread and butter now.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go into these shops on this TV show, which we'll talk more about the TV show in a minute, but when we go in there, a lot of my consulting isn't videotaped. I talk to these guys off on the side. I talk to them after hours when the cameras are off. I don't know if that's when my true personality comes out, but that's when a lot of the advice is given, especially if we're traveling all over the country. We see Houston, Texas. It's all trucks. Good. Work on trucks and Jeeps. Maybe not work on drag cars, but it can go the other way. Sometimes we'll go to an area where we really love Fords, and there's Ford stuff all over the place. No, take that down. I don't know. So that's what happened. We started the shop and, lead by example. We really loved the import European Volkswagen, Audi performance tuner scene. That's what we were big into at the time.
What time frame was that?
This would have been 2003.
Okay.
2003. So my brother and I both had Volkswagen GTIs and pretty much spending every penny on modifying them. Big mistake at an early age. Now remember, I was about 20 years old at this time.
Okay.
So I don't know if I even knew any better anyways. You're spending money on the shop, but your focus was probably on your ride,
Right.
And a lot of mechanics tend to do that too. I mean, we focus in the wrong areas sometimes. So we started the shop up, we focused on that, but what we were getting were Volkswagen, Audi scheduled maintenance, Mercedes-Benz scheduled maintenance, timing belts, water pumps. So even though I kind of fought that for a couple of years, I'm going to be honest with you, in my area, there's no money in modifying cars. I think that has something to do with your location. Sometimes when you're next to a military base, you got a younger audience that's kind of got disposable money. They don't own a house. They don't do this. They buy a car. They want to modify it. They want more horsepower. They can come in with a paycheck. Mm-hmm. In my area, the kids with the Volkswagens and the Audis, they didn't have much money, or they didn't have much money they wanted to spend with me. And remember, I had a brick and mortar. I needed to pay rent and bills and everything else. I had to pay them, charge them real money. And this was the height of the online forum, which sometimes can be the death to the independent shop because everybody's got an opinion on
DIY, huh?
DIY or die, right?
Yeah.
Or it should cost you this amount of money to do this, or I wouldn't pay that amount of money. Well, it depends on where you live. We're only 30 minutes from Washington, D.C., so our rent's really high out here. So it's got to reflect that. What else can I say about opening up a shop? Yeah, just be really open-minded. We started with very little capital. We didn't have a truck. We didn't have a trailer. We bought used automotive lifts. We did pay a person to come out and install the lifts. And this is where it gets interesting, is when they installed the lifts is the beginning of the shop. So the shop wasn't open yet, and I was actually still managing Advanced Auto Parts. So I would come up to the shop around 7 or 8 p.m. when I could get off work and look to see what's been done at the shop. Either my brother was there during the day or maybe my father was there. But we would try to oversee as much as possible. And what did they do? They mounted the lifts where they thought they should go. Oh my God. Kevin, I can't tell you how much of a pain in the ass that was for the 6 years I was in that building. Just because of the angle of one of the lifts, it just made it such a mess. I mean, you back up a car and there was drywall and it would dent the drywall because of the angle of the lift. So I think it was in my brain when I came to this TV show, like, no. Placing a lift is not as easy as it looks. I know it's going to look really easy, but it has to have a certain workflow in your shop to increase productivity. You want to be able to get a car in and out as fast as possible, but as safe as possible too.
Yeah.
So I have those growing pains of the first shop, and now I'm on to my third location. We've actually moved it 3 times because I always go off that mentality, the adapt or die. You know, if you're in an area and it's not growing the way you want to grow, pick up and go. You never want cobwebs on your toolbox, even as a mechanic. Always constantly be moving. Don't ever get too comfortable in your surroundings. Plus, it keeps you fresh. It keeps you new. You're always, you got to adapt. So I would be in the first location, which was a brand new warehouse building underneath a management company I was leasing to.
Okay.
And I'll tell you one thing different about a management company to a independent, a guy that owns the building and will rent it out to, is a management company does not care about your business. They don't care. They're there. They want to have the grass cut once a week. You're paying for it. They want to get the snow shoveled, even if it's a half an inch of snow. You're paying for it. But there's no, there's no true like relationship between the tenant and the renter. So, or the tenant and the landlord. That bothered me. I'd be in this big building that was brand new. They didn't put a sign out for us. We had to put a sign, but they didn't want a permanent sign. They didn't want it out front. They didn't want it this size, that size. It was too many rules. After 6 years, a lot of the other tenants in that building that came, they left because the rent was so high. So I proposed to them. I said, listen, I know this whole building's empty now. I was the first one here. I'm still the last one here. If you don't lower it, I'm not going to re-sign another 5 to 10 year. I'm going to move. So here's 2010 comes around, and I moved that shop to the downtown Frederick, Maryland area. So it was maybe 5 miles away. Didn't lose any customers. It actually increased because now when they came to the downtown area, they had a time where they could drop the car off for an oil change and walk and get a coffee, a bagel. They actually had something to do, where my first location was a little bit more in the country.
Yeah. So you just drop off and you either take an Uber home or something, right?
2003 to 2010, there was no Uber.
Have your friend pick you up.
Yeah, it was like how my husband has to take off work to come pick me up. Are you sure I can't wait and do this? And I was at the time, I was the guy that was answering the phone, working on the car, then calling the customer to come and pick it up. And sometimes I'd have to come pick them up from the, they call it the MARC train station, but it's basically the train station that connects your Frederick, Maryland to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, all your big hub cities.
Okay.
And I'd have to pick them up, which sometimes could take an hour out of your day. But you wanted to keep those customers happy and keep it as easy and, accessible as possible. So the second shop really was a great shop because it was this old school feeling to it. The landlord let me do whatever I wanted to. So if I wanted to repaint the walls or lay tile down in the offices or whatever, he had no problem with that because you're making his place look nicer.
Yeah.
I came in, it had some broken windows. We changed those out. We did signage. We did everything. It was great. And the other tenants that were in the back of the building were like a great body shop. It was a towing company. It actually was working out great. But within a couple of years, my landlord decided to put in some tenants that I didn't really agree with. And they were quite messy. They would party at night. They'd leave beer bottles on customer cars of mine if they didn't come inside. I mean, I was constantly babysitting them or fighting with them, and the landlord didn't want to do anything about it. So once again, we go to that adapt or die. And I said, I'm out. I found a much better place. And this is now we're getting into 2016.
So that must be where you're at now then, huh?
Almost, because that's when I actually did if you want to, we can start talking about the TV show and how that started happening. But basically what I want to get at is take your time finding your first shop. Don't rent too big. We all think we need huge shops, but it's just like a closet. Doesn't matter how big your closet is, you'll find a way to fill it. But if you have a small closet, you can also figure out a way to keep it small and how to work on that, almost like a goldfish. But if you want to grow, you do need size. But let's start small, and especially if you're a 1 to 3 person operation, I think you could make a lot of money in, let's say, 2,500 square feet. Let's get on some points that I really believe in that. I'll probably get a little backlash for this, but offices don't make you money. Big offices, if you're in the service industry, offices don't make you money. You need a very small place, a nice desk or table that somebody can come up, feel comfortable. It's got to look clean, but a place that somebody feels comfortable, they can come up and pay for the item or inquire about your service.
Yep. I would agree.
A place to pick up the phone, a place to be at the computer, but not like a living room. People go overboard. With coffee pots everywhere and tables everywhere, like it's a Jiffy Lube. If you are a Jiffy Lube, then sure, have a big waiting area. But I want to focus on like independent service shops, a way that, not a huge team of 20 people, because they should already have it figured out by now.
Right.
We're talking about somebody that maybe wants to leave the dealership and start their own, or leave the shop they're working at now because, all the money's going out the window, going to the owner of the shop, and it's not going back into the building or advertising, and you want to start your own thing. I say take the risk. What's the worst thing you can happen? I think even Richard Rawlings said it best, is like, oh, so I go broke. I'll just get a job at Lowe's or something and then start over again.
Which is where you were at when you started, almost certainly. So,
of course, I was at Advanced Auto Parts, and if that place taught me one thing, it taught me a lot about American car parts. Because I tell you, I didn't know, the Pitman arms and everything had a U joint and this and that. I'm working with European cars, which were weird enough, but I think that was cool. And it taught me a lot about the parts business too. And then I'm running a shop, and then I'd go, every day I'm dealing with parts guys. For some reason, they were super rude for no reason. And the parts companies, the parts guys I'd have to talk to felt, they would talk to me like they're the mechanic. And I wish that could get turned around, especially the dealership parts guy. If I got to come in there and you got to spend 5 minutes looking for a part, just do it, man. It's your job. I'm gonna use you again. But it came down to a point where there was a local Volkswagen dealership in the area that I completely blacklisted and never used again because of how rude their parts department was. And I was a commercial buyer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here with an independent shop. We could have worked off each other, but they were so rude and so greedy that I would drive 20 miles out of my way to another Volkswagen dealership if I had to pick up that hard to find part that I couldn't get delivered to my shop.
The relationships are important. So we have the same thing. So I have a Mitsubishi Evo shop, and we're a mile and a half from a Mitsubishi dealership. Mm-hmm. And I have another one in town that has always done me really well. And the close one, they're in here, but they have a really hard time keeping the parts people there. Like, I guess, high turnover within the parts department. So I go there and they'd get a new guy, and I'd tell him a part, and I'd give him a part number, and he either wouldn't order it or order the wrong thing. Geez. And it was over and over and over again. And I gave up at one point, and I went back to the farther away dealership, and finally they got a manager who cared, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, I want to earn your business back. Like, I'll deliver it to you. I'll take the orders over email or whatever it takes to get your business back." And they've done it. And so I went back to the close shop, which is more convenient for me. And they were delivering for a little while until one of their porters wrecked their delivery truck. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. Like, the importance of the relationships and treating the shop. If you're a part salesman, treating the shop with respect and working with them and not against them. So.
100%, and equal respect too. I don't care if you're a one-man guy that orders a Mitsubishi part once a month, but it should be the same respect as the guy that has the huge accounts too, mm-hmm. because you never know what's going to happen to the underdog. And I don't know, the dealerships, they can be a little rude, a little aggressive, but then when you find a good one, they're really good. Mm-hmm. And it shows. I don't know if that's the management coming in and really whipping them into shape and saying like, "Hey, let's be happy around here. We're working around cars, and Mitsubishi's are pretty cool." And it would be nice to see if they would like embrace your performance side, if that's what you do.
Oh yeah, they definitely do now. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right, but with their dealership side. So let's say like if they wanted to do like a collaboration, or if they had like a local Mitsubishi show, we would hope that they would contact you and say like, "Hey, can you bring some of your cars here and some of your clientele? You got some really cool Mitsubishis. You throw a bunch of decals on your cars and your customers' cars, and then it's sitting on their dealership with your name all over it." Mm-hmm. Stuff like that would be kind of cool, or like a local Cars and Coffee or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, so you touched on this just a little bit, and I wanted to go back to it. You said when you started your first shop, and this is for shops or other people who are looking to start their shop. When you had that guy installing that lift crooked, did you know at the time that was going to be a problem, or did it take you some realization of actually working your own shop to kind of see like, whoa, this is like really hindering our the flow of work through here, and it's very inefficient to have to load a car sideways and watch out for the wall every time. Is that something you learned through business, or did you know it right away that it was going to be a problem?
I'd say the second I walked in through the bay door, I saw it was a weird angle. But let's go back to high school when I was dealing with math and engineering and all that tech ed classes. It's you see angles, so you just go, no, that looks bad. Why would you do that? But some people may not see that. And when it comes to lifts, there's a couple of things to know. If it's an old school lift, it's probably just a symmetrical lift where 50% of the car is in the front, 50% of the car is in the back. So you need about 12 feet from the lift to the wall at minimum, at minimum 12 feet. If it's a asymmetrical lift, which they're using now, which is a little more angled so the doors can open a little wider for some of these like wider door cars, that's 70-30. So actually only 30% of the car is in the front and 70's out the back. So you can kind of squeeze them up a little closer to the wall. And are you a type of guy that likes your toolbox in front of the car? I don't know. I mean, some guys do. I never have had the toolbox in front of the car. Usually it's off to the side or something. I usually have
I'm
a
off
work
to the
table
side as well.
in front of the car. Yeah, but and now dealerships sometimes they supply their own toolboxes. But I worked at a place called Criswell Honda once. Gorgeous dealership, brand new, but every mechanic struggled to get the lifts on because they were the way you came in on the doors it was an in and out style, but the lifts weren't angled, so everybody had to do like 6-point turns to get their cars on the lift. It was a mess. But so yeah, I kind of saw that on the first shop, and then the second shop I'm out there, I almost want to say it was the same installers I used. And I did my measurements on the lift and I put them next to each other. It was a one bay shop, but it kind of like opened up once you got in there. And I put two lifts right next to each other. And he said, you're not going to have enough room. And I said, I promise you there's enough room. I did my measurements. I'm going to have 3 feet between each lift post. And I want them like this. That way I don't have to ever turn the wheel more than a couple of times, to get the car in and out. And we did it, and it was perfect. But I sat there with the people, and we moved them and moved them and moved them. Once they're upright,
they're easy to shuffle around. Yep.
Yeah, you can kind of walk them around. So we'll just touch really quick on lift safety. I've seen a lot of injuries coming to lifts. The new lifts these days are actually pretty manageable. The old lifts are not. The old lifts are very, very heavy and extremely dangerous to move on your own. I highly suggest you get a professional to do it because they have the equipment to do it. They'll do it safer. You can be there to supervise and figure out where you want it, but also they'll figure out how much concrete is you need a minimum of 4 inches.
Yep.
To do these anchor bolts.
Interestingly, on your first episode, that was an issue, wasn't it?
It was, and I don't know if I completely agreed with the lift outside. That wasn't really my call all the way.
Okay. Well, I've seen that before. Down here, you can do it because, like I'm in Dallas and Grapevine's not too far from here, but it's possible because you can work outside just about year round. There's probably maybe 1 week out of the year that it's too cold to use it, but lift outside is not terribly uncommon around here, and it's not going to be used for like longer term projects unless you just want it sitting outside all the time. But it can be used.
Well, let's say it can be used to the right owner. Mm-hmm. This guy, it would have just been used for storage again.
Okay.
You can beat him over the head as many times as you want to tell him like clean up your shit, but at the end of the day, these guys might not change. I don't know. We try our best, but we're only there for a couple of days.
Right. Exactly.
And when it comes to lift placement, I'm also dealing with Richard. Richard has an idea of how the shop wants to go. I can fight back a little bit with it. But I can also spend probably way too much time figuring that out. So sometimes you just got to go, that looks
right.
Great. Let's do it there. There's a ton of room. And, but yeah, let's say you need a minimum of 4 inches, but we did talk with the installers of the lift. I said, well, what can we do? So we added a special anchor bolt and an actual concrete epoxy, and he said that would work. It seemed okay. I mean, we had big trucks on it and everything, but let's say you're going to go find your first shop and it's an old building. I'd say drop a drill bit in there, drill through the concrete in a little area that nobody would really see. Then you take a little coat hanger and you bend a little hook. You drop that coat hanger in and pull up once the bend hits the bottom of the concrete, because you want to drill all the way through the concrete until the drill bit, doesn't hit, it just hits dirt. Go down there and actually measure it yourself, so you know that before you sign that lease that you can put a lift in there. So I would say 4 inches. You could probably nudge that mark a little bit.
So, do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I don't like those terms get thrown around so much. Even just a guy that just starts making keychains and stuff, all of a sudden he's an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I would just say it was my life. It wasn't going to go any other direction. We knew it was going to have something to do with cars, and I had no idea that TV shows were going to start up. But yeah, I guess so. We didn't change, reinvent the wheel or anything. We were working on cars, and what's funny is we were the only show in town that did European cars.
Okay.
But now it's been 15 years, and I don't know, there's probably 6 or 7 European shops with very similar names of mine that try to do the same thing. So I don't know. This town can sometimes be a little bit of a copycat. Somebody sees you doing something or doing well, they want to start doing it too.
Okay. And so the location, has it really played a role in your success being on the East Coast? Because, we have maps of, where shops are, and it's highly concentrated on the East and West Coast, and everything in the middle is very sparse. So obviously you have a lot of competition, but you also have a lot of population density out there, right?
Huge. And the closer you are to DC, the more business you'll get. Obviously, you'll have a higher rent, much more traffic, and every car around here has 150,000 miles, because a lot of people commute that 30 plus mile 1 hour a day into what we call Montgomery County or PG County, right into Washington DC, and then they got to drive back. It's a terrible traffic, and the cars get pretty well used, and they're always high mileage. But down there, the closer you are into that area, I don't know if they really care about return customers, because they have new customers every day. Here, this is where they live. They may commute into DC, but they live up here. We're a little bit more in the country outside of DC, and we have to keep the customers for as long as possible, which means you got to keep them happy.
Okay.
And let's say we get a new customer in. Let's just use a female for instance, because I feel like they're a little bit timid when it comes to an independent shop. We have a bad reputation. And I always, when I walk into these shops that we redo for the TV show, I want to make sure that, think of your mother. Would your mother on her own, without a husband, without a son or anybody else helping, without an uncle, would your mother on your own pull into this service shop and ask a question or ask for service? Does she feel comfortable? Is it clean? Could she use the bathroom if she had to wait for an oil change? All of those questions need to be asked to yourself. And if any of those are no, then you're doing something wrong. And when she walks in, don't hit her with a $2,000 bill. That's just going to make yourself look bad. Even if she really needs that work done, start off slow. Say, we can start doing oil changes, or I'll check the car for free, I'll just make sure everything's safe for you. All right, your brake pads are low. I would say within about 1,000 miles, get them done, but try to come back as soon as possible. This is the price I'll give you, and try to be as honest as possible, and you'll gain that customer's trust almost instantly. And
that's a very, very important point, is making sure you can keep the customer, not just hitting them for what all they're worth the first time they come in, and then never seeing them again.
which you can do that if you're in a highly populated area. I don't agree with it, but if you want to be a crook in this business, you could be a millionaire pretty quick. Yeah. But you won't last very long.
And social media is putting a stop to that really quickly. There are some very rabid people on social media that will put an end to a business all on their own, it seems like, right?
Same thing with a restaurant. Yeah, this is everybody should be on their tippy toes nowadays. But my generation, we grew up with that kind of technology. It's the older generation that doesn't think that it matters. Mm-hmm. It's the older generation that doesn't want to adapt. It's the old timer that's got the shop, but that wants to be hard-headed and stick to one thing and doesn't believe in a lot of different views and needs to kind of take a chill and take some lessons. And the second you stop learning in this business is when you fail. You should always be listening and learning and learn new tricks and new ideas. And a lot of these young guys and girls, when they're coming into this business, they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of businesses that are booming just because of their social media, not because they've been in business for 20 years.
Right. So have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if this isn't going to work? And how do you overcome that feeling and move forward?
Oh, all the time. That's human nature. It's natural. You'll always doubt yourself and wonder if you're not doing the right thing or not making enough money, or let's say it's a lot of stress. I mean, even if you run a clothing shop in your local town, it's stress. You're paying your own bills, and you got to keep that business alive. And every month you got to write a bunch of checks out to people. And sometimes you don't have that money, and all of a sudden things have to go. You might have to sell your car or sell some of your prized possessions or something you may have collected. It doesn't matter. I mean, we've all been through that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not for you, it's not for you. You'll figure that out pretty quick. Let's say you came from the dealership and things were okay. Somebody's getting you the work. You never have to talk to the customer. I'm talking about a mechanic right now.
Mm-hmm.
You never have to maybe confront the customer. Every once in a while, they might sneak back in your bay and ask you some questions. But let's say you got a service advisor that takes care of all of that. That's a pretty nice job. And then you start getting a little confident and said, I can do this on my own. You go and start your own shop, and all of a sudden it's you that's got to talk to the customer. And you got to greet the customer with clean hands when they walk through the door. And you got to make sure that you're not drinking beer during the day or smoking a cigarette in the office or even having grease all over your chest on your shirts and stuff. You got to keep a good look to yourself if you want to run your own business. And if you can't do that, if it's not for you, then all of a sudden you got to hire someone to answer the door and answer the phones. And that's more money out. And then all of a sudden you look back at the dealership and go, damn, that wasn't that bad of a job. Maybe I'll just go back to getting a steady paycheck.
Down into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's another rabbit hole. It sucks you in pretty hard. But the feeling of owning your own shop, everybody's different. Did I take days off? Nope. There wasn't many sick days. There wasn't many vacation days. Every once in a while for a car show here or there. But it's your own shop. You take pride in it. It should be a pretty cool place to be at too. A place that makes it interesting for you to come into work is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Don't make it so boring. It's your shop. Put your own flair on it. Like I said, not too many Ford signs on the walls, but some automotive style to it. Keep it clean. I'm always going to talk about keeping it clean because a dirty shop is so gross. And let's talk about the TV for just a second, is that these shops I go in, I'm spending 10 hours a day cleaning out trash. They maybe film 10 seconds of it. I'm serious. It is so gross, the kind of shit that we've seen. It is so nasty. But I'm okay with it. I can sit back and go, oh, I know what I did. I know that I changed someone's life, even if it was for just that little bit of time or for the rest of their life. I know what I did, and I'll always be able to take that with me. And yeah, it's eye-opening when they come back into a shop and they go, oh, this place is huge. Yeah. You were just wasting space. I think one example is there was a corner of a shop. It's coming up. I'll give you a little teaser. There was this little corner of a shop. It was a small shop. So just one little corner, and we wanted to put a air reserve tank, which is like basically you have a compressor, but then you have a separate air reserve tank that holds the air so your compressor doesn't keep pumping all day long, making a ton of noise. So these things don't require any power, any water, nothing. It's just an airline goes to it and holds your air. But it's a massive piece. Looks like a mini submarine. And we figured out that we needed, I think we did 24 inches by 24 inches. And I calculated that by the amount of rent he spent per month, square foot, and how much that little corner was costing him. I think it was like $34 a month.
Just to hold the air compressor reserve.
But once I put that into perspective to him, every square inch starts looking valuable. And then there was nothing in that corner. I mean, it was just full of junk. And all of a sudden we put a nice piece of equipment, or it doesn't matter what you put there. It's just something can go there that can either make you money or get it out of your way, or maybe store your lamp over there when you're not using it, or what have you. But that a 24 by 24 inch spot was $30-some, and that was by square footage. That wasn't volume. Right. I didn't measure the ceiling or anything. And remember, we could talk about that too, where space can go up, and you could build shelves and start stacking stuff up high and keeping things off the floor.
Mm-hmm. So what's the worst experience you've had in business?
Well, I would say that from 2003 to 2010, my father would come in and he would do at that time, he was just about to graduate Maryland University doing online courses.
Mm-hmm.
So he would come in and hang out in the office. We had at that time, we had 2 offices. And like I said, offices don't make you money. Well, that's why. I figured it out. They didn't make me money. I didn't need 2 offices. But we had 2 offices. Anyways, he'd sit in one of the offices because he just liked to be around us, his 2 boys. And he would do his classes. What happened was he ended up passing away pretty unexpectedly. And you know what? After that, we had to go into work the next day because customers, they don't understand that. Their car's at the shop. They want it back. Unfortunately, that's just the harsh reality.
Yeah.
So going through a tragedy that you got to do, or just even picking up the pieces, getting the family going again, and trying not to dwell so much on the morning, but on just, he wants the business to succeed. He doesn't want you to take a week off to do this or that, get it back up and going and show that you're stronger than that. But you never know what's going to get thrown at you in this life. Mm-hmm. And let's say something like that happens, or let's say a really good positive thing happens, like all of a sudden your girlfriend or your wife's pregnant. That can change your business real quick. All of a sudden that'll set you straight really fast. We've seen that happen.
Uh-huh.
So I would say that's the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, where I'm running a business, but also driving him to cancer centers and making sure that he was getting the treatment that he needed. And then when he was getting sick, going home to take care of him as much as possible.
And he was a part of setting the business up in the first place. I mean, he was there from the very beginning. So
he was there for the beginning, but he was the type of dad that wanted us to learn everything. He didn't really invest much in it. Okay. I mean, we were car guys. We didn't have huge savings accounts or anything. Mm-hmm. We kind of lived paycheck to paycheck, and he lived his whole life that way. And it was kind of cool. He was a carefree dude, but he wanted to just be there, hanging out. That's all. Awesome. He just wanted to be a part of it. So that was probably the hardest thing I had to deal with was running a business on top of that, and then after it, and continuing going on where you still had people coming in that just came in just to maybe talk to your dad and say, "Where's your dad at?" Like, "Oh, unfortunately he passed away. You knew he was sick, and we have to deal with it." So it could have been finances, but I'll be honest with you, there was a couple of times where you don't know if you could pay the rent. Mm-hmm. And you might have to sell the car you're driving to pay the rent. Are those as hard as losing a father, though? Nah. So those problems, you never think about them again until somebody like you asks me, and then I think about it and go, yeah, I guess there was times I struggled to pay the rent, or I had to sell a bunch of stuff off, or what have you, Yep.
Yeah, and the money thing is always something that, you can work around. If you have a slow month, you just bust ass and stay longer the next month, But sorry to hear about your father. That's one thing you can't undo, so.
Hey, that's life, and everybody's going to have to go through it. But what the coolest thing about that is that I had a dad that hung out with me every day. Mm-hmm. Every day he was there. Yeah, it got annoying. Why wouldn't it be? It's your dad. He's there. He's there when you're there. When you get to work, sometimes he's there, or he's doing college classes in the office, and you're trying to make money. You go, hey, what are you doing here? But you forget that it's at the end of the day, after he's gone, you go, man, I spent more time with him than anybody else that I know has spent time with their father. So that's super cool. And I don't know. Some people have their wives working with them. I don't know if I'd ever really want that, but they do. They're there, and that can be cool too. Or a brother. I work with my older brother. There was a lot of times we would argue and scream at each other, but those are growing pains. Those are in the first couple of years. After that, now we're just like best friends. And if you can do that with a sibling, that's the best way to keep the business as honest as possible. Mm-hmm. And one of the terms I once heard from a bar owner said, if you're going to open up a bar, make sure it's with your family, because you're going to get robbed blind. Because it's just how it is running a restaurant bar. It's like, you better open it up with a family. Just something I always kind of took with me, was like, well, I guess I do have a family run shop, and that's kind of neat. I never had to worry about those things. But look at the TV show. Multiple times. This has already happened. You're going to see it. Hopefully y'all are going to keep watching. But the security cameras we installed, which were a vendor kind of an idea we have now caught 2 people stealing and or breaking in.
To the shows that they were renovated or rehabbed, I guess.
Yeah, the afterwards that you'll see coming up.
Wow. So what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up? I'm guessing the show is a big part of it, huh?
Okay, so people probably want to figure out, well, what are you doing right now? So I saw an audition or a casting call for a TV show on Facebook, and it said, seeking a successful shop owner to be a host on a new Discovery Channel show with Richard Rawlings from the Gas Monkey Garage. My brother filled it out and said, Chris, you need to do this. You need to fill it out. This would be perfect. I said, what is it? I don't would it be on TV? What am I doing? So a week later, I finally did mine. And we both had Skype interviews set up where they wanted to see the shop. They wanted to meet us, talk with us, but separately. And we both went through it. And I just happened to go a little bit further, but I'm more of the outgoing guy. My brother's a little bit more quiet. I'm more of the social guy. I'm the guy that will, probably, I'll call the customers and I'll greet the customers and stuff. He's a little more shy that way. But that outgoing personality all of a sudden must have translated pretty well on this Skype interview. One thing led to another phone call, more emails, background checks, everything. They even went through my social media and just anything that they could see if they had a problem with. But they wanted to make sure I was as clean cut as I looked. And then from there, they flew me out to Los Angeles to do a in-person audition with the producers, green screens, cameras, microphones, everything, and to see how you do. There was no practice. There was no even telling me what we were going to be doing. They flew us out there. I remember being in the hotel lobby, seeing a bunch of the other guys that I was, I guess, competing with at the time. And to me, they all looked like biker guys. Actually, they were biker guys. They had motorcycle shops. Mm-hmm. I took it as it was automotive with some motorcycle shops we may be doing. But I don't know. I was a real shop owner, I didn't have tattoos all down my hands and stuff, but there were guys out there with that. And there's nothing wrong with tattoos, but I just knew that if I was going to be a guy that was going to be in the front of my business, maybe I wouldn't have tattoos visible. I don't know. It's just stupid things like that. But I saw a lot of the guys that kind of look like the Jesse James look, wearing Dickies and work boots and everything else to this audition. And I didn't want to wear my shop boots to LA for an audition. So did the audition. It went really well. And later on, a couple of days later, they gave me a call back saying, hey, Chris, we really like what we see. I think we're going to shoot a pilot with you. I said, whoa, that's awesome. It's so surreal, though. The phone call happens and it's LA. So they're calling you. I'm on the East Coast. It's always 10 p.m. They're calling me. And it's awesome news, but they always kind of keep you at bay. Like, well, it's just another step forward. And we don't know exactly what's going to go on here or there. And it's just we're still trying things out. And sure enough, March of 2016, we shot a pilot at Grapevine, Texas. I would like to say that we had no idea what we were even doing. There wasn't really a plan or a script or anything. There was no practice. I remember meeting Richard Rawlings, and then within about 5 minutes, they slapped the microphone on me and said, okay, get into his truck, and you're going to go check out the shop. I said, what? Are you kidding me? I've never – okay. And it's just that's how they are. They don't – it's hit the ground running. Uh-huh. Every second counts when it comes to production. I mean, they're paid every second, so they want to make the most out of it.
And there's a lot of people involved, too. It's not just you guys roll into the shop, right?
Wow. I mean, there's just so many people involved, and I had a whole new respect for television after that happened. A whole new respect, just seeing everybody can say what they want about a Richard Rawlings or an Aaron Kaufman or a Jesse James or any of the big car guys. These guys go through a lot of stress to make sure that it looks the way it does. And it takes a lot of talent to get those words out properly and to not look at the camera and the way you walk, the way you talk. It's another job. It's a whole other career. And it's kind of cool driving in the truck with him. And we had a pretty bad tornado came through Texas at the time. And everybody had to pull off on the highway. And I'm sitting with Richard. And he kind of gave me the ins and outs of showbiz in a quick crash course. And I learned the most I learned about TV was from him in that 30 to 40 minute sitting underneath a bridge overpass waiting for these tornadoes to leave. And I've never been to Dallas, and I went there once, but it was only for a couple hours. But I never seen how these storms were, and it was turning 18-wheelers over on the side on the highway.
Yeah. Yeah, it rains pretty hard, doesn't it?
Really hard. And he was really used to it, but he kind of gave me the ins and outs real quick of the showbiz. I learned I gained a new respect for him right then when I met him too. Because it's not what you really see on TV. It's how they are off camera too.
Mm-hmm.
So then we shot the pilot. Pilot went well. All of a sudden, we're waiting for Discovery to pick up the season or the series. We get the good news saying they're going to pick it up for 9 episodes, including the pilot would make 10 episodes. That's a lot for a first season show. Just an example, Fast and Loud, I think they started off with somewhere between 3 and 5 as their first season. And the second season, 3 and 5. And they had to prove themselves that it was a hit show until they got those bigger numbers. Now, lucky for me, I kind of leapfrogged this entertainment business and just started right with Discovery Channel and Richard Rawlings.
Right.
He already had to go through all of that crap to get his name the way it is. And he's just so smart when it comes to marketing and branding. A lot of people don't see that, but that gas monkey, that's not the name of the show.
Right.
Fast and Loud is the name of the show.
Yeah.
But the way he took his shop and turned it into this, this awesome enterprise, and it's just like it's almost like a playground when you go there. It's a card collector, it's a shop, it's a TV set, it's everything in between. It's a place to go meet and greet and buy merchandise. It's like
they sell a lot of merchandise. A couple times I've been there, there's like a continuous stream of people going into the showroom / merchandise store in the front there.
Yeah, for every $20,000 car he sells about $1 million worth of merch.
Yeah, I believe it.
And that goes back. Let's go back to Grateful Dead, the band.
Uh-huh.
First band to really market that branding, that Deadhead, that just sold everywhere.
Tie-dye T-shirts on everybody, huh?
On everybody, or Social Distortion. People didn't even know it's the band Social Distortion. They just knew that dancing skeleton with the martini, and they sold more T-shirts than they probably did concert tickets.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, let's take a quick break here, and we'll continue on and we'll go into the show some more.
We are hosting our next Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar during the SEMA show in Las Vegas on Wednesday, November 1st, 2017. We developed this one-day seminar to help shop owners rethink how they run their business. We cover topics like employee management, best practices for accounting, improving customer service, and many more. It doesn't matter whether you have been in business for 20 years or haven't even opened yet. You will get useful information and helpful business practices to improve the operations of your shop and be more profitable. You can find out more information about the seminar and sign up through our events tab on the Do It For a Living Facebook page or by visiting our website at doitforalivingpodcast.com.
Okay, I'm here with Chris Stevens of Garage Rehab, and Eurotech Classics is his shop. But I wanted to talk some about the show itself. So, I mean,
Yes.
you already covered how you got involved with the show, and we've kind of touched on the premise. But if you want to fill the listeners in exactly what the goal is of the show.
Well, I think everybody's got a different goal of the show. My goal of the show is to embrace independent shop life. It's a very tough industry. It's a stressful industry, and it can sometimes be a dirty industry. It's a lot of work. We all know, I'm a mechanic myself. I'm a shop owner myself. This is the real deal. I'm out there. I'm helping these guys as much as possible on and off camera. It's up to what they edit to what you guys see on TV, but I still want to make sure that when I leave, it's a place that I would work at. And that's the truth. I put 110% into every single shop I'm at. I'll sweep in the corner of a building just to make sure there's no dust on the floor, but I don't need to do that. The camera would never see that corner of the building. There's ways to hide trash and this and that, but we want to make sure that it is a real business when we leave. Maybe they had a plan when they hired me for that they went after a guy that owned their own shop and the way that my shop looked. And I don't have a huge shop now because obviously I'm gone for 8 months of filming. So I wanted to make sure I had a shop that reflected the TV show, and I had to slow down some of my service and everything. But I also wanted to keep it alive. So if somebody wanted to come and see the shop or meet me or something, I had a place that I could still conduct business. But this TV show, I want to put the spotlight back on the shop owner. And if you're a younger dude out there listening and and your dad owns that shop, and maybe that shop might be a little boring or not up to your taste, I want you to still take pride in that and know that your voice will be heard if you come in there and you change it the way that this new generation needs to change these shops. Let's bring social media about, because that should be at the forefront of these shops now. Social media, that's the front door they see now. They don't actually see your front door. They see that Instagram, that Facebook. Make sure you got a website. Doesn't need to be too crazy. Just make sure you got your hours, a way to be contacted, a little bit about what you do. We're all this what do we call it, where we just need things almost instantly almost, where we don't have time to read a huge bio, but we want to make sure, okay, this guy looks like he's doing what I need to be done, and this is the kind of service I like. Have your website, have your Facebook, have your Instagram, be accessible, have a way to get in touch. But if you're listening, I want to make sure that this shop, it can be a cool job too.
Okay. And when you guys are looking to get started at rehabbing a shop, what's the first thing you guys are looking for? Like, what's the first step? Is it cleaning? Obviously you have to change the whole, culture of the shop. If they made it a mess over 10 years, you mentioned it, what's going to keep them from immediately making it a mess when you leave?
Well, I think we probably, as a production standpoint, we probably look at the employees first. Like, how will that translate on TV? Because it could be really bad. Maybe these guys would be terrible on film too. We want to make sure that when we help someone, we're actually helping someone, not somebody that's already checked out.
Okay.
We all know that shop owner that's already given up, kind of just, I don't care anymore. And it's just going to be some grumpy old dude that's just, I want somebody that is going to be, appreciative after we're done, after we leave, after we, bust our knuckles and just get so dirty every single day cleaning these shops. Now we also need a shop that's a mess. If it was a clean shop, we'd probably have no problems.
Right.
That's how it is. If I walked into a clean shop, I would think it's a success. I wouldn't think that they had an issue. That's the thing about cleanliness. Sure. Don't get me wrong. These dirty shops, these guys are talented mechanics. They're awesome technicians. They're fabricators. They're welders. They know what they're doing. And they're really smart at what they do, but they also don't know how to take the trash out. They don't know that how important it is to make sure the business looks as good as your work is. Mm-hmm. Keeping that balance is very, very difficult. At the end of each day, you should put all of your tools away and clean them. You should close your toolbox up. You should take pride in every little thing you got. Your toilets should be clean. Your sinks should be clean. The trash should be taken out. And absolutely no drinking during work hours. I like a beer too, but no drinking during work hours. It's a bad look. And please, I know there's different parts of this country that it's still acceptable to smoke a cigarette in your shop. There's also a lot of parts that it's not. Just don't smoke it. Don't smoke in front of the shop. If you got to smoke your cigarette, just kind of go off, because that smell does get inside the customer's car.
Yeah, it only takes one cigarette too. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about fire safety. You can't throw your cigarette butts in the trash can or an oily shop rag. We know not to leave those around, right? But the simple things you already knew, but maybe just forgot about it.
So what do you find to be the most important part of a successful business? Is it cleanliness? Are you looking for like the efficiency, the layout, the people? What do you look for to be the most important part?
So we already come into a shop that's already a mess. So obviously we're always going to clean and repaint and everything else. And I guess you can move into a brand new building, but sometimes that looks like, oh, did you just move into a brand new building and there's nothing there? But I always do my research on the people too. I don't know. That's a tricky question to answer. How do I say that? Usually still, that old school word of mouth too. You'll know when a shop is good. You'll hear about it all throughout the town. That's the shop everybody takes their cars to, or that's the shop that everybody takes their trucks to. Yeah, word of mouth is really powerful still. So keep your customers happy and treat everybody with respect still. This is not a time to put your political point of views in your front yard of your shop or in your shop or nothing. Unfortunately, this is the time that if you own a shop, you don't really get a say in your own opinions when you're owning a business. You can take that at home. And I see that a lot nowadays, especially in the area that I'm at. And it's like, cool. You're waving you got a Confederate flag flying in your shop. I understand Jackson, Mississippi is that way, and they still embrace that. But it may not translate very well on TV or for someone just walking in. Maybe just take the flag down. I know it sucks to say to certain people, but just keep your point of views at home. And it goes back to your Ford signs or your Chevy banners. It's going to look like you only work on one specific car. If you're going to put one up, put them all up. Put all the different brands up. But don't just why stunt your growth? Why target yourself into one thing? If you can work on a Ford, you can work on a Chevy. If you can work on a Volkswagen, you can work on a Toyota. You know this already. So why push them away? Now, maybe not advertise that you work on Lexuses, but you're a Volkswagen shop. But if one of your customers' wives or husband drives one of those cars, say, hey, you know what? By the way, that GMC or that Chevy Suburban you're driving, we can work on that too. That's always another little interesting thing that you can do is that they don't even – a lot of times people just
don't even know.
Oh, you guys can work on my truck? Like, yeah. if you could do 6 timing chains on an Audi S4, I'm pretty sure you could do some front brakes on a Suburban. So you want to make sure that sure you may not want to rebuild it, waste your time rebuilding this or that, and then it takes away from your day-to-day bread and butter work. But embracing those kind of things, and I think I'll come in and I'll see a shop that says like, oh, we're a body shop. And you go, well, how much body work are you doing? And then you realize they're not doing any body work, and it's just taking up two of their service bays, and they got a paint booth that doesn't work, and they got equipment that doesn't work. You just go, but guys, you guys are doing really well in service. Maybe drop the paint and body off and do service. And if they're willing to accept that, then we know we could work the rest of the way in this rehab of the shop.
Okay.
But remember, we're there for, I don't know, I think it's around 13 days, but there's actually only 6 days for us to turn the shop around.
That's pretty impressive because the Grapevine shop, I mean, I don't think very many people could have done that in 6 days. It was a total disaster, and you guys really flipped it pretty quickly. So just so you guys out there know, Russell and I were there like midnight, 12:30 at night, but we were also there around 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m. And we would work and work and work, and the cameras may have been off at 6 or 7 p.m. They went home. I don't expect them to put in the work, but we didn't really have manual laborers. We had 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They come in, they take the junk away. They don't help you clean. Right.
we didn't have somebody to clean the windows, clean the floors, and get ready for camera, and we didn't know how to fix that. We were just working so hard. We both got sick at the end of that first episode, and I remember we both had one pair of work boots, and they'd be so soaking wet and covered in grease on the bottom because of how messy these shops were, that I'd scrub them in the hotel sink and then tie them up to the little vents
to let them dry
and turn
overnight.
the heat on full blast to try to dry them out by the next morning so I'd have dry boots. And after I started wearing a different kind of boot for some of these shops we were doing, I would wash them and then mink oil the leather every single night for however many months I was out filming these shops. So it's tough. A lot of people got injured. Our hands were raw with, picking up big metal cabinets or moving a lift, or everything's rusted, greasy, and dirty. You're just not going to see that on TV. This is like the real mechanic, the real blue collar shop guys coming out and helping these people as much as possible, because when we see that they want the help, it makes us work even harder. Okay.
So you have a business background. Did you ever write a formal business plan for your shop?
Nope. No, I didn't really know which direction we were going. We changed so quickly where I wanted to tune Volkswagens, and then I ended up doing general maintenance on Volkswagens, which was pretty cool because it almost felt like an assembly line. I'd have a bunch of cars out there that all needed the same timing belts and water pumps on Audi A6s and Volkswagen Jettas and 1.8 turbos and Volkswagen Beetles. And this was, remember, this is the time where gas prices were really high and nobody was driving Hummers anymore or Suburbans anymore, and everybody went to go buy a Volkswagen Jetta. They didn't know what a Volkswagen Jetta was. They just knew it got really good gas mileage and it was cheap to buy off Craigslist. So we were the guys keeping them running. They didn't want to go to the dealership because every time they went to the dealership, they saw a $2,000 quote. And I'd be the guy there doing, timing belts for $775 and stuff out the door. So I didn't really have a business plan. I have a I have a future plan now of what I want to do. And I always wanted to grow and go different directions. But, I also didn't want to start like an actual business loan. I never wanted to go to the bank to ask for money. I don't know, being hard headed. I feel like if I couldn't afford it, I shouldn't own it.
Yeah.
So I started with used lifts and then maybe sometimes used toolboxes and then got better stuff. And when I needed it, I'd buy it and worked my way up to a small open trailer. And then now I have a couple of trailers, enclosed trailers, diesel trucks. I got everything I needed, but it took years to build that up. And sure, flip a car here or there if you can. We're mechanics. We should never buy a car that runs perfect. That's stupid. Buy the car that needs the work. We do the work. We get it cheaper. We buy it. And if, let's say you can actually make a deal on it, sell it.
Yep.
Sell the car and make sure that when you do, maybe not go on vacation with it, even though I know your wife really wants to go take that cruise. Put the money back into the business, because once it's spent on a vacation, you'll never see that again.
Yeah, we went to Disney this summer. I have kids, though.
Yes, you have kids. And you got to do that as a family guy, too. But let's say you want to build your business and you're just starting out. I don't know if you really deserve a trip to Disney on your first year of business. You got to wait a little bit. And then
I've been doing it for about as long as you. Since 2006 is when the business was really established. But yeah, so I've put in my dues, I guess. But
yes.
Okay, so when you guys you kind of hinted at it, but the shops that you're rehabbing, you kind of jump in without a plan, but do you guys give them a plan post the show? I mean, you're like a business consultant, not just cleaning up their shop. So
yeah. So what we're doing is part of the plan that we give them is we'll actually, let's say they're a truck shop. This coming episode on Wednesday night, there's trucks everywhere, like commercial trucks.
Uh-huh.
So we actually went and got them a fleet account with a business.
Okay.
And to show them that, okay, we installed lifts that can support 14,000 pounds. Not everybody needs a 14,000 pound capable lift, but we put them in the shop because in Bakersfield, California, it's big diesel trucks everywhere and big trucks full of toolboxes on the back. And it's all blue collar service worker vehicles. So we put in these big lifts. Then we got the vehicles that reflect the way his business should be going. So when we go in there and we got to consult with them and we figure out what they're doing wrong and we figure out what they can be doing right or what they're doing right and they just don't know it, we'll shine the light on that. I wish the show would kind of show that a little bit more. I don't know if it might play kind of boring. Maybe.
No,
tell
the producers Shark Tank is a hugely popular show because people want to hear the business side of it, right?
They want to. Well, first of all, you want to know, how can I make money?
Right.
It's always about how I can make money. I understand it's cool to come in there and clean a shop out, but how is he going to start making money with it? Well, we do give him the proper equipment. But it's not like some of it's top of the line stuff, but it's not stuff that's not affordable. If you need a tire, if you're not doing tires, you're probably going somewhere to outsource somebody to mount the tires. You should probably save a little bit of money or budget each build that you're doing to make sure that a little bit of that money goes towards a tire mounting machine and a tire balancer. And try to never outsource work. Keep everything in the house. And if you're in a place that does a lot of commuting and you're doing a lot of tires, you probably need an alignment machine. See if you can budget an alignment machine. See if you can actually fit that in the budget. I know it's hard because you're looking and you go, well, I'm already broke and I'm failing. How am I going to afford an alignment machine? In that case, you might not be able to. But there is ways that you can still make money without the huge expensive equipment. And not every shop gets an alignment machine. Not every shop gets a lift. You'll see a lot of the different shops, we reflect on what they thrive on, what they specialize in.
Very interesting. And so how many employees do you have at your shop? If you're gone 8 months a year, I'm guessing your brother has kind of taken over managing it?
Yeah, that gets into weird. But basically what it is right now is we've almost privatized the shop a little bit.
Okay.
So he's here doing almost like he's back to doing light restorations on these vintage European cars.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of them here. So I actually built a 2,500 square foot showroom that's got drop ceiling, central air and heat and everything else to have these cars on display. And as he's working on them, And then I built this like really cool sliding barn door, like a 12x9 sliding barn door, to get the cars out of the space and then into the service part, which we actually downsized when the TV show started.
Okay.
And I did that because a lot of guys would probably close the doors and then say, I'm going to work with Gas Monkey and this garage rehab, and I'm going to ride it as long as possible. I still wanted my shop. I'm still a shop guy. When I get off that airplane, if it's 3 p.m. on a Tuesday and I just finished the shop, I come straight here. I don't go home first. I come straight here. I want to check on the cars. I want to check on all the different things and the workings. We do still have a customer base, but I'm not going to lie. I mean, we'll pick and choose work at this point because we don't want to get flooded with work, especially with the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
They want to just come in and just kind of drop off their cars for this. And it's like, at this point, we're kind of a little bit privatized. We're just down to my brothers running the shop. We've had employees in the past, and maybe in the future, I'd open up another larger shop with employees again. But right now, I do want to focus on the TV show. So I give it my 110%. So
Gotcha.
I give it my main focus is on this show.
Okay. And how many hours a week are you working? I mean, you're saying when you're actually at a shop, you're working, 18 hours a day, it sounds like. But what kind of schedule do you work?
For the TV show?
Yeah.
10 plus hours a day.
Okay. And
Yeah,
is
10
it
plus.
8 months a year sort of plan? Is that what it is?
Ooh. I think it was a total of 8 months, but who knows because if, let's say season 2 gets picked up or something and
Yeah.
they want to do more, I don't know how many episodes they would want to do. They could want to do a bunch, and then I'm gone every day of the year.
Okay. Do you have a
So-
family?
I do not. No,
Okay.
I'm engaged right now, and she's definitely like business oriented right now too. So we're both, I don't know, we're just kind of doing our thing right now, and it's great. I bought a house this year with her, and we live together, and I have my cars, and my thing I'm doing right now is I like hunting for the cars. We can call them barn finds. I never find a car in a barn, but with the cars that are sitting outside of this or that, a lot of European cars, I go and find them and leave notes on them and pick them up and drive them or sell them or part them or what have you. I mean, we're on the East Coast, so we get a lot of rust, but that's kind of my interest right now while I'm at home.
Okay.
And I would love the business to go that direction for myself, is where I bring it back to my roots, where I go back to doing vintage Porsches and German cars and British cars.
Making the hobby the business again, right?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm at the point where I can do that.
Awesome.
But I don't know if I could turn away a timing belt or a jet, some scheduled maintenance on a Benz. I still have customers that really, really love me, and they don't trust anyone else, and I understand that. So we'll work around my schedule, where I'll say I'll still do the work on the car, but it's when I'm at home.
Yeah.
I'm not too good for that. So
Okay.
I'll still do work as long as I have the time to do it. If like I said, I want to focus on the TV show. I don't want right now, the TV show comes number one.
Cool. Okay, so when you were running the business, I guess we could say this pre-show. Did you spend your time doing the work or managing the business?
Home, both.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a harsh reality for everyone out there, but you know that you're going to have to do both. You will have to get dirty still. There's ways that if you're good at managing, you can definitely hire some people and have them do the work. Here, I never really found good employees, or maybe I was just a perfectionist where I had to get my hands on that car no matter what, because there's a lot of liability, when it comes to cars.
Yeah.
You hire someone, you trust that they can do the work, but I don't think we understand how much trust really goes into these vehicles. I mean, you're doing brakes or you're doing suspension components or anything. I mean, even electricals, any alternators, batteries. And then you give it to somebody that may have their kids in the back seat, and they're not test driving the car. They go right onto the highway.
Mhm.
They go right into their day-to-day life because they think that you did the job as a professional, and they should never question the brake pads that you just put on them, or never question the control arms you just changed.
Mhm.
And we got to remember that this is a very serious business, almost like a doctor is, a lot of liability. They go down that road and something happens, or their car breaks down in the middle of the highway, or that fuel pump quits on them again. Just take the extra time to triple check all of your work. Test drive the car more than needed. Make sure that car that you feel comfortable putting your wife that's 6 months pregnant into that car. Every car should feel that way. I don't care if you're just doing a quick tire change. You should always make sure that the car is safe to drive. And so you got to make sure that the employee can do that work.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you hire right. You hire cheap, you're going to get cheap work. You know that.
Yep. And you're doing specialty stuff too, being European. It sounds like some of even the vintage stuff is very specialized work. So it's extremely hard to find somebody who's good at working on any car, and even harder for when you get into these niche markets like that too, huh?
Yeah, I specialize in Porsches,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of the guys that I grew up with in this area, you know, I'd go visit their shops when I was 16 years old just to see the shops because I love that. So I'd go around, see what cars they had sitting out back or out front or customers' cars. These guys are getting old now,
mm-hmm.
and they were working on these cars when they were new or back in the 70s and stuff. And it's kind of a dying market, unfortunately. And I'm still there rebuilding carburetors on a 1968 911, you know, triple throat Weber carburetors, Italian made stuff. And I'm waiting for the parts to come in and doing it all. So I don't know. There's not a lot of guys out there doing it right now. The West Coast is a little bit more, but especially on the East Coast. So I think I'll stick with that for a while.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy having these cars in the shop. It's a love-hate relationship, carbureted German cars, but I don't know. Right now I like looking at them. I like driving them, and I love hearing the stories from the owners, and that's just kind of my market right now, but it may not be for everyone. So that's just for me. I would say that, you know, now that I'm on the TV show, I have a little bit more wiggle room of how I want my business to go next for the next 5 years.
When you're done with the show or an episode, are you guys planning on doing follow-ups with them? Like, is this something we'll see? Because I really love Shark Tank show, and I mean, this people know this from the show because I talk about it often enough. But I love when they do here's a recap of how this business has been doing. They've grown, you know, this much, or they have shut the doors. Maybe it wasn't successful at all. Are you guys planning on doing that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, good.
and it's going to be interesting. I'll tell you that. It's going to be super interesting. I don't know. You know, it's easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's easy for someone to come in and say, get rid of your junk cars.
Yep.
Come on. You know, with titles these days and where are they going to go? And what, do we crush them? Do we sell them? They may be a customer's car. Do we have to get mechanics liens? This and that. We do our best to clean out parking lots and to clean out the shops. But if it comes back, you know, it's going to come back. This is how these guys are, some of them. And we might come back and bitch again, scream at him. I don't know what have you. You know, I got this dude, Russell, he's in there and he's a big, tough guy. He's hard to get along with when you're one of the shop owners in there and this guy's telling you that all your shit sucks and needs to get hit the trash. Some of that's, you know, for TV because obviously we still respect car parts and people's personal property.
Right.
You know, a little behind the scenes thing is I remember on the first episode, I think we saw a toolbox going into a junk truck, and that didn't happen. That was somebody lifted it and put it in there, and I ran over and said, "What are you doing? That's a toolbox. Pull it back out of there." But that's what hit the TV.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but we pulled it out of there. I'm not dumb. I don't throw away toolboxes. But what am I going to throw away? I'm going to throw away a bumper shell to a Toyota Camry you got sitting on your shelf. I'm going to throw away a passenger mirror you may have sitting there, or a cylinder head that's been sitting face down the whole damn time.
Uh-huh.
Come on, throw it away. Is it transmission? Is this any good? I don't know. Well, what does it go to? I can't remember. Well, throw it away. Here's the time that we have the trucks that are large enough to take this crap away.
Yep.
A lot of the times we don't throw away an engine block because we can't lift it, or we don't want to put it in the hatch of your wife's SUV or whatever have you to take it down to the scrap guy and get $5 for a sandwich. But here we have it there. And there's a lot of times that somebody goes, that's worth money. I said, it was worth money. It was costing you more money.
Yeah.
There's an
space,
example.
yeah.
There's an example where we find people's personal projects sitting in a shop. Maybe it's a late 60s Camaro, Corvette, Volkswagens. You're going to see them all of those cars I mentioned, but they're sitting there and you go, how much is this worth? Oh, $5,000. So it's worth it for this car never have to move in all of the years of you working here. Let's say 6-7 years, that a $5,000 car can take up a full bay. And then you explain to them that you're the guy that's renting this shop or owning the shop. You know, you're paying a mortgage on it, but you're the guy that's spending the money to have it sit here. So this car has cost you 10, 15 grand the whole time it's been here, not 5 grand. It may be worth 5 grand, but it's costing you more money. So now it's time to get rid of it. And, well, I was going to get it running, or I was going to restore it. I was going to do this or that. Well, you know what? That's more time. And that, which relates to money. It's more money that's going to go out the door. So you could have a vintage Vet or Camaro or whatever. But if you're failing, I'm sorry, this is not the time for you to have personal projects. If you are struggling, you need to get rid of that shit now and start over and start fresh and kind of wake up.
This is spot on with what we've been talking about. We just wrote a blog for the Do It For Living webpage about this exact topic, personal projects and taking up space at the shop, and it's costing money. And I moved into a new building, so we bought this building, and it's we've been here probably 4 months now. And I have my personal race car. It's just an Evo shell that, you know, it's been sitting around for 3 years with half-finished cage. And when we moved into the new building, I was like, I have limited parking. This thing is not going to make it into the new shop. So it's at my house, in my garage at my house, and I've actually got it for sale right now because I just know that if I ever have the time and money to devote to this race car, I can just buy another shell because it's worth almost nothing. Awesome. It's just taking up space. So
that's a great mentality to have. That's how everybody should feel, is that you think your shit's rare, you could buy it again. I don't know why that works, but I promise you, if you sell that one thing that you thought you could never get again, I promise you, you'll either find something better or rarer or just as good. It's the way the universe works. But you have to let things go. And plus, why hoard it? Give it to somebody that needs it. If they're looking for a fender for the Galaxy, or I don't know how many weird American car parts I've gone through and said, you could have sold this. You could have went to a swap meeting, made a couple G's, but you didn't. And now we have to throw it away. And you will see some episodes where I sell stuff, but I do that on my own. I wasn't told to do that. I just look at something and go, nope, we're not throwing it away. I'm selling it. And you'll see how fast money can be made. And this is real. I was not told to sell anything. I was not told. All I did was I'd go over to the owner or ask for the owner's phone number if he wasn't there, because we do give him the boot. I'll text him or call him and say, can I sell this? What's the least amount of money it's worth to you? Do you have the title? Once those things are all checked off, I will sell his shit. And I have made a good amount of cold, hard cash in 3 days. 100% that's real. I hope it shows on these upcoming episodes, because it'll show the shop owner. I mean, there was a time I yanked a Volkswagen Beetle motor out, fully rebuilt, 100% brand new, never been used, fully rebuilt, was ready to go into a project, and it was sitting underneath a workbench, and he didn't know he owned it. I didn't see it for the first 30 minutes. I'm pulling crap out, and all of a sudden I get to a pair of axles to an air-cooled Beetle, and I go, what the hell is this doing in it was a smog testing shop in California. And I go, what is this? And then I see a shiny valve cover, and I yank on it, and it's a full pancake 4-cylinder, like a 1600cc bug motor. Oh my God, this is worth a lot of money. And you'll see I actually started selling off some of the air-cooled parts that he had no idea it was in his shop. He had no idea. He said, I've never seen that before. So what?
So one of his techs brought it in at some point in time as a personal project or something. How does that happen? I mean, they must not have been paying attention to it.
Yeah, okay. The details of it was, I guess he did have a son at one point, was into air-cooled Volkswagens, brought a bunch of shit over, and then the son distanced himself with the rest of the family that owns the shop, and I think may have gotten into some drug abuse and never came back, and just wasn't your ideal son situation.
Okay.
And the father's looking at it like, you know what? The rest of the sons are here helping. You're not. Your shit's getting thrown away. Okay. I don't even know what it was. It's gone. So
interesting.
You got to be a hard ass in this business, and there's a lot of the shop owners. I call them a yes man, because everything's okay, right? Nope. There's no friends in this business. Sometimes you got to say no. And if your friends don't want to pay the real money that it costs to run a real shop and use real tools, then they're not your friends. They're just using you. Uh-huh. And they're taking advantage of you. And watch what happens when you tell a good friend that you think they're your good friend. You tell them that you got to charge them the full amount. See if they stick around. Because if they don't, they're never your friend. So it's a good way to run a business is when it comes to those friends, those bottom feeders, those people that are trying to take advantage of you, you got to say no.
Yeah.
And if you got a technician that you're super buddy with, or it's your best friend or something, it's not always a good case because you can't tell them your honest opinion, or you can't tell them that they did something wrong, or they installed that, or they need to redo it. That's a hard thing to do, to tell your friend. So maybe don't hire your friends.
Yeah, we see that a lot in the performance industry, and it's not necessarily friends, but people who are like racers who want a discount, and then they keep coming to you for a discount, and then when you realize, like you're not getting anything in return, you're not getting the exposure or the I guess recognition, then you realize that they're just using you for your discounted parts or labor or both.
Right. And the racers, geez, they're the best ones because they're breaking their cars all the time. And if they're not breaking it, they're upgrading it, and they're tuning it, and they're dynoing it, and they're changing things out, and they spend a lot of money. But then they think just because they come to you every week that they should get a discount. It's like, I didn't tell you to modify your car.
Right.
Like, you're the one that wants to gain the extra horsepower and to make it go a tenth of a second faster. It's going to break. And you can't consult everyone on how to build the proper this or that. If they come in and say, I want you to install these cams, you might just install the cams. It may not be the right cams for the car, or not the correct, manufacturer might have a better cam here or there, but it's cost efficient. You put them in and you tell them, listen, there's no warranty on this. You brought me the parts, I install them. And if they get upset, that's when it can get a little difficult with the performance market. That's why I had trouble with it. It was a lot of customer purchase parts that manufacturer said it installs in 2 hours, gains this and that, and the shit never fits.
Yep.
And I spend more time mounting an exhaust that feels like it was made for the wrong make car. And then the customer's unhappy because I had to weld something here or there, bend something, and charge them another hour labor. And it's not, I don't know, that wore off on me pretty quick.
That's my life. Installing shit that doesn't fit.
And the Volkswagen market for tuning was huge until WRXs came out and until the Evo came over here. And then those guys went, damn, I could get that much more power for that less money. And what did Volkswagen have? They had an R32 that was like $40,000. It was non-turbo. It was heavy, and you had Evos and STIs that would just spank it. It was so fast and so cheap and really reliable. So I think that kind of hurt the European market when it came to tuning and modifying, and the Japanese market just skyrocketed with that. I mean, so many people went over to that market, but at the same time, yeah, you're doing Evos. Those are great cars, but they break. Same thing with Subarus. And, they break. And Subarus, they break. This happens. You start forcing induction into these cars, blowing head gaskets out and shit.
Well, we come from very similar backgrounds, because I actually started with a 944 Porsche, and then I had a Mark I GTI, and then I had a 944 Turbo, and then I went to the Evo. So that's where we went. Like exactly what you're saying. In 2004 is when I got my Evo, and I kind of sold off my Volkswagen, I sold off the Porsche, and just went all in on the Japanese stuff. But yeah, I mean, they break all the time, and if you visited my shop, you'd be like, "Whoa, you got way too many cars here." As I've got 25 busted Evos here, and I can work on as many of them as I can, but I run into issues of like engine work is really the big problem. Finding machine shops that can turn the work around fast enough. So I've got probably 2/3 of the cars here are waiting for other shops. So
when do you stop taking in customers then?
I have a pretty, most of the stuff that I do is no longer walk-ins. It's all by appointment. But I still just run into troubles of I have a hard time saying no, even if somebody needs a new engine. I'm just like, can you bring it in 2 weeks? But then it turns out that I didn't get any more cars out in the last 2 weeks. So then I take it in because they told them to bring it in.
I see that the most on import tuner shops. I see 20 plus cars. I never understood how that happens. Like, doesn't your phone just ring off the hook of people saying, is my car done yet? Did you get to this? Did you order that? Because there's a local Subaru shop that does stuff, and you drive by there and it's 25 like STI sitting outside. Yep. You go, how do you, like, even liability? It's like some of these cars came with BBS rims and Recaro seats and Momo wheels, and then you got modifications on top of them, carbon parts and big, huge STI wings. It's like, do you have a problem with the vandalizing or people with theft and stuff taking shit off these expensive cars?
Fortunately, I don't have that problem. But anyway,
Well,
let's take a second break here, and we'll continue on with some more questions to you. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, we're back. I wanted to follow up with you with what's something you struggle with business. I mean, right before the break, I kind of mentioned that my biggest problem is saying no to getting cars in the shop. What do you struggle with in your business?
Oh, selling the job. That's when the salesman has to come out of me, where you see the problem and now you have to call the customer and kind of be light-footed and say, listen, this is the problem. This is how much it's going to cost, but this is why you need it done. And whether you supply them with photos or why you have to go inside the engine to change a rubber belt and why that cost $1,400 on an Audi with 150,000 miles. You have to explain to them that if you don't do this, this is why these cars are sitting at junkyards. And same thing with, Subarus and other motors and stuff that are interference motors. But it's educating the customer, making the sale, and keeping them happy. The problem with a independent service shop is that nobody wants to come in and see you. They are not happy when they're walking through your door. They are there. They did not save for a problem to occur out of the blue. They weren't expecting the alternator to die or the car doesn't start or why it's got a weird engine noise. They're never expecting that, and they're never prepared. And then they come in and they're so confused on, I don't even know what's wrong with it. I don't know how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost me $50 or does it cost me $500? And when you're a guy that just sells parts, for instance, if you're a guy that just sells wheels, that guy has saved his money. He's so happy to go and buy his new set of rims, put those wheels on his car, and you're the guy that he wants to rock your T-shirt, your sticker on his car because you're the guy that sold him something he wanted. Mm-hmm. But if you're the independent shop, you're like the plumber. You're the electrician. You're the guy that only gets called when the car breaks. Very few people come in and say, you know what? I read somewhere that scheduled maintenance is needed on my Mercedes-Benz. Can we get that done? No. They drive it until the check engine light comes on. They drive it until something's rattling or loose or this or that or it doesn't work anymore. So it's a constant battle of balancing a healthy relationship with that customer and making them feel safe and keeping that trust alive, because that's the hardest part of our job is we have to keep these customers coming back. We don't want to do all this work. Now, let's say you've had them for a year and then they go somewhere else and then they got to start all over learning a new shop. So You want to keep that healthy. That's the hardest part is selling the job because you don't want to, I try not to upsell a lot.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
If a car comes in and it needs a specific part, as a mechanic, just as a car guy, you're going to see when something needs to be replaced. You're going to see the inside of the tires are worn prematurely. You got to go, oh, shit. I got to go over there and check why that's happening. Let me just go see for a minute. So then you sell him the job that he came in to do. He pays it happily or she pays it happily. And then you got to explain to him, well, while it was up on the lift, I also saw the bushings and the control arms are worn out and causing uneven tire wear and this and that, and it's going to keep eating up your tires. It can tend to sound like you're trying to take more money from them.
Yeah, and that's the bad rap that the general service shops have gotten over the years, is they try to upsell too much stuff, right?
I'm sorry, Kevin, but it's a hard job. This is a hard business to win at because we are the service industry. And like I said, if they're happy coming into you, that's awesome, because the best feeling is when somebody can still be friendly with you as you're running their credit card, because that means that you did your job right. That means that they trusted you and that they don't have a problem with paying the bill that you supplied, paying their service. They're cool with it. But if they leave unhappy, that's going to make you feel kind of shitty too.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to feel like, man, I didn't do that right, or they questioned my work, or this. And that's when this job can suck.
Right. So you kind of hinted at, for the next year, you're kind of ramping down the shop and focusing on the show. Do you know, like, what your next year plan is going to be? I mean, like, how do you plan around a show if you don't know the season 2's been renewed yet?
Oh, just like I did for season 1. I moved this shop with a pilot episode in the bag. I moved the shop because of the show.
Okay.
I wanted a big parking lot right off the highway to have my cars there, my trucks, my trailers, people to come in and out of. And I was in a downtown area. It wasn't really a place you could pop in like it was my first shop.
Okay.
My first shop had a nice, huge parking lot area. I'd have get-togethers, barbecue, food trucks come out. And I didn't just invite the Volkswagens and Audis. It was everything. Every local car club, I would say, come on out. It's free. We got free food when we were doing free food, and then we had food trucks. But we would say, okay, we got food trucks, barbecue, we had a DJ, and it was just a way to get the car community together.
Okay.
When I left, that was the end of that for this area. We didn't have that anymore. When I left to go to downtown Frederick, we had no space. And we didn't really have an inviting shop where people could come and hang out. It was like straight service, in, out, same day, morning. You know, they drop it off in the morning, sometimes through the night drop, fill out the paperwork. I get the car, I order the parts, have the parts there by 10:30 a.m., finish the car by 5 p.m., test drive the car to 6 p.m., customer picks it up at 7 p.m. It was rough. And I did that for 7 years because people don't care that it takes you however long to do the service on the car. They want it back that day.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that of course they want it back that day. And so that was my goal, was to get it done that day. Moved the shop when I heard about the TV show and said, I want a shop that can almost, how do I say, like, show off some of the work that I've done.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I've done in the past, almost like a little bit of a museum, a nice meet and greet, a place like right now I'm doing a podcast. I have an area for podcasts and interviews and everything that I could do that I've done to help promote this show.
Yeah, and it looks really nice. I can see the video Skype, and I can see like posters in the background, and I mean it looks like a legit super clean office and whatnot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, there you
got
go.
Cars on display and stuff. Of course I had to adjust the lighting so it wasn't too bright. What's cool is, so we built the shop that way, and my plan is, which I have heard, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but when a show's a hit, which we don't really know yet because they don't want to tell you it's going to be a hit because it might cost them more money to get you back out, I guess. But let's say the show's a big hit. There's a possibility you're going to film every day for an entire year and have 1 week off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Fast and Loud does. They're filming every single day.
Okay.
So if that happens, the shop I'm pretty happy with the way the shop is now. And let's say more publicity comes out and more money, I'm going to invest it right back into the shop. And I'll probably even build a bigger shop. And I might hire people, to start working on the cars. And then my brother can be here running the day-to-day stuff. But who knows what's going to happen in 5 years?
Very cool. Do you own the building you're in right now?
No.
So
I
renting?
lease
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now I am in the perfect situation. I found a landlord that is just the nicest guy in the world. I've had some bad landlords. I've had a bad management company I had to work with. I've had some shit I had to deal with, but this guy is awesome, and he loves the fact that there's like a TV show, a little bit of local fame coming in. He gets a kick out of that. He's got a little bluegrass band he plays in on the weekends. And as of right now, they're building a huge gas station like 50 yards from this shop. So, I mean, I hate to jinx myself, but I would love to buy the building I'm in.
Okay.
So I'll stay where I'm at now, and if I have to adapt again, I will. I have no problem moving. But
Okay.
I love where I'm at right now. It's an awesome spot. It's called Catoctin State Park. So it's got these really cool mountain area about a 2-minute drive from here. So if you go to test drive like one of these old Porsches, you go up into the mountains, the temperature drops by 15 degrees. And it's so gorgeous and so awesome when the leaves change, and we got peach orchards right behind my shop. I got a cornfield in the back of my shop. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I'm right off a major highway called 15 North. That takes you all the way up to the Jersey Turnpike, Pennsylvania Turnpike. Takes you as way down south into Southern Virginia. But I'm right off the highway. So if I'm shipping a car, sometimes these old Porsches and stuff, they go back to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
A trucker needs to get an 18-wheeler in here. They can pull right in. They can use the bathroom. They can get some water. They can take their time loading the car, and off they go. Where the other shops couldn't do that.
Okay.
So
with that, can you suggest an action item that our listeners can use to improve their situation?
yeah, I would say that no matter who's listening, I bet you got a project car or a car that has taken up space. Take a couple of minutes, clear the trash away from it, take proper photos, not the photo that's blurry like you're walking by it and you took a photo. Spend 5 minutes. Our phones are so good nowadays with these cameras. Take some photos of your junk, put it up for sale, even if you think it's not worth money. I bet you it's worth money to someone else. I don't care if it's an old motorcycle. I don't care if it's an old German car, American car. Put it up. Get it out of there, because I guarantee you got something sitting. I know it. I've been in enough shops to see it. And like I said, open up your eyes. It becomes part of your environment. You walk by that item so much that you don't see it as anything but a piece of the environment, a piece of the background, the landscape.
So
it
true.
blends in too well. Move some stuff around too. You know, if it feels stagnant, if you come into work and you're just kind of like the days are starting to blend together, move some shit around, change things up, add some lighting, put some things on the wall, put a nice clock on the wall, put something, I don't know, something to keep you going. Sometimes what I like to do is I start off in the morning. It starts at the house. I'll clean up the kitchen, whether it's sweeping a floor that's already cleaned, but it's just that movement of cleaning. And it always works where I come into the shop and then I'll see something sitting on the desk. I hate messy desks. Clean the desk up. You got an old magazine sitting on the desk. You got old newspapers. You got an old quote you gave 3 months ago. Write it down in a proper book or put it on the computer and then throw it away. And then you'll see how your day progresses in this cleansing mood. Like you're always feeling like you're ahead of the game rather than behind the game. Like I said, clean the tools at the end of the day. Even if you're doing a job, let's say you're doing a head gasket and it takes you 2 days. Let's say it's a big job. It takes you 2 days. At the end of the day, and you got the head off the car, and the next morning you're going to come in and you're going to do new head bolts and you're going to do a head gasket and everything else. Put the tools away. I know it sounds crazy because those are the same tools that you're going to use to put the thing back on, but put the tools away and clean them, because it's going to make you feel like you come in and it's going to feel new and clean again. The last thing you want to do is get your hands dirty at 8 a.m. That is such a gross feeling. You want to come in feeling clean, and then you can get dirty throughout the day, but watch how much more efficient you'll be. And I'm a little neurotic and OCD where I'll lay out every single bolt as they come off the car, almost in order. And when I come in and it looks like a puzzle piece I get to put back together, but it's not a big pile of bolts.
Uh-huh.
They're there individually, like, oh, those 6 bolts definitely go to the intake manifold because they're all the same, rather than having the bolt on the right side of your toolbox and on the left side of the toolbox. Another note I want to mention real quick is the bigger the toolbox is not the better the mechanic. If you got a snap-on toolbox, that's great. A lot of people come into a dealership and they're intimidated by the toolboxes that other guys have, and they waste a lot of money to the truck guy that comes in and collects that payment on your paycheck.
Yep.
Be careful. Don't build debt quickly. Any toolbox can do the same job. Yes, they get nicer. If you are good at your job, that's some of the perks and the bonuses that you can treat yourself later on in life to a nicer box, a cleaner box, a box that's bigger. But you can get a lot done with a small box, and it doesn't need to be from Mac Tools or Matco or Snap-on. I'm not arguing. Of course, they're the best. We know that they're awesome toolboxes. But when you're starting out, maybe start with something that you can afford. And that goes the same way with cars, tools, toolboxes, and the shop space. The best thing you could do for your business is in a couple of years, you need more space. The worst thing you can do is trying to fill space you don't use.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, because I'm literally doing a head gasket. I started it last night. I put all my tools away last night, and when I'm done with this interview, I'm going to go and put it back together. And I have we use bolt bins, so we go to Home Depot and buy stacks of those, they're like containers, plastic containers
Yes.
with dividers, and I have probably 50 of them. And every time I take a car apart, regardless if it's a one-day project or a several-month engine build,
Sure.
I disassemble all the bolts and put them in their individual compartments in those containers. And if the car needs to go into a parking spot, I just shut the container, put it in the trunk, and the bolts are all still organized. And I mean,
That's awesome.
we spend a lot of time here doing exactly what you just told us. So I really like your action items, and I hope other people realize that it is extremely beneficial to do just that. So
It is, and you're going to see it and go, well, like, what's your role on the TV show? Well, let's go back to the growing pains. We don't know. We're still figuring it out for ourselves too. Like, how can we were talking about working on cars and stuff. How can that relate to a TV show? That's going to be hard to get that onto video. And those one-on-one conversations I have with the shop owners, where I'm like telling them, we've all been there, being successful. It's kind of sometimes can be a state of mind. If you're paying your bills and you're doing what you love, I think that's success. Having $1 million in the bank account, that's another added bonus. But real quick on that, putting the tools away and bolts. One of the things I used to always do, especially on some of these larger all-wheel drive cars like the Quattro Audis and stuff, is when I would do a transmission, every bolt to that transmission bell housing is different. They're not 10 of the same bolts. They're 12 of the different bolts, different sizes. So I'll start it like a clock. I'll go at the 12 o'clock position, pull that bolt out, and I'll take a piece of cardboard, and I'll put it in like it's a clock.
punch a bunch of holes in it, huh? Okay.
Yeah, and then 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I work all the way around, and then I have this template, and it looks like a transmission bell housing. And you go, oh, shit. I go back the next day, and if you had a problem at the house, or you had something else you had to deal with and your brain got wiped clean in one night, you come back the next morning, you go, shit, I forgot how to put the trans back. Or let's say the part was on back order, and then the car gets off the lift, you put it back on the lift a week later when the correct dual mass flywheel comes in or what have you, and now you can get back to work. Well, that sucks when you got to come back 3 or 4 days later and work on something where every bolt was different. But if you look at that piece of cardboard and you go, damn, it's all right there. You can fly through it, boom, 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 without thinking too much too, without spending time trying to think about it or going over to Google Images to see how that picture looks.
Yeah, efficiency.
Efficiency. Trying to be fast and efficient, but it's those little tricks and tips that you could do throughout the day.
Okay, so let's close this thing out here with the quick answer questions. So these are just whatever comes to mind, just spit it out. So what's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year? And this can be tools or parts or whatever you want it to be.
The phone, man. Apps that are at your fingertips. You're able to order parts from your phone. I use WorldPack, which is a great parts distributor for all of my parts from vintage cars to brand new cars. And they have an app where you can actually scan the VIN number like a barcode, and it pulls up the year, make, model, VIN, engine code, everything you need. So you don't have to sit there opening up door jams, figuring out the data manufacturer because they had a VIN split, year, motor change on all the crap. I would say the telephone is going to even get better. Watch, you'll start tuning cars from your cell phone. You might even be able to tune cars from your cell phone now.
You can. We've had BMW people doing it on our dyno. So
I'm telling you, it's only going to get better for the user. It's always going to be user friendly. We started with Windows 95 and those kind of things, and everything is getting better and easier to use.
What software are you using daily on your computer?
Like I said, I do use the Shop Boss from the program right now, but I'm trying to test it out. I'm not getting a lot of newer cars in like I used to, but it seems to work pretty good.
Is that what you use for accounting as well, or do you use QuickBooks?
QuickBooks always. Okay. It's easy for me. Mm-hmm. And my fiance does a lot of that for her business. Okay. So it's kind of cool. We can make anything we need to actually break down all the way to how much money I made per month on used parts. Like if I'm parting out a car, versus how much money I made in labor on service cars. Mm-hmm. What's neat is you can take that and look at it throughout the year and say, whoa, I make way more money working on this kind of car or doing this kind of work than I do on this. But this takes up more of my time. So I think QuickBooks is a really cool way to do that, and inventory too. If you got to have inventory, you can do it through that.
Okay. What's your favorite shop tool?
Oh, like probably the pry bar.
Okay, hammer's a very popular answer in welders and dynos, but yeah, pry bar's a good
Man,
one.
pry bar, dude. I got a specific one that is so worn out. It's probably about like 21 inches, and I use it for so much stuff. But when you get familiar with a tool that you've used for, let's say, 20 years, you're like a master. Like it's like your sword. You're so good with it. You can use it for other things than prying. I don't know. Screwdriver sets, I go through a bunch of those. The whole funny joke about losing the 10 millimeter socket. I'm sure I have a lost 10 millimeter socket somewhere in my toolkit.
And what are you driving right now?
I'm driving a 2002 Porsche 911 Carrera.
Okay.
And I had that set up kind of like for road racing. I went for the Carrera because it was the only rear-wheel drive version where the turbo was all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So I have a Carrera. I've done all your infamous IMS bearing problems and rear main seals, and took the stupid flywheel out and put a solid mass lightweight aluminum flywheel in, and did a roll bar in it, and H&R coilover suspension and camber plates up front, and just kind of made it pretty fun. But interesting about that car is I drove it out to the last episode, which was Roanoke, Texas. So I drove it 21 hours to the episode, and it was supposed to be seen as I pull up to this Scotty's Automotive in Roanoke, Texas. It was supposed to be seen that I couldn't get into the driveway, which was 100% true. I never saw the shop before. I went to work that morning in the car, and I had my work boots and my work clothes like in the car because I couldn't drive the car with the big boots. I drove up to the front of the shop, and the parking lot was so destroyed it would have just bottomed out the car and probably cracked the oil pan. And I turn around, and the owner was watching me, and the owner goes, "See, this is the problem. A nice car just pulled up and just turned away." And then I get out of the car and I go, "Hey, what's up? I'm part of the cast." And said, "Was that your car?" I said, "Yeah, I drove from Maryland out here." And he goes, "I thought it was a customer turning away." And I said, "It might as well be, because I wouldn't have been able to get to your shop." So we actually repaved the front of his building.
So you could get in it?
All the potholes. Yeah, it was great. I mean, they showed that for 30 seconds, but yeah, it was a full paving job done. So there was not one dip, divot, or pothole. But yeah, that car brought me to Dallas twice, and then I drove it out to the Nashville episode, which will be one of our last episodes. But I did drive it out to that, and that was a 10-hour trip. And there's just something about driving a car a long distance, the music either off or turned down low, and just hearing the exhaust bouncing off the Jersey wall, and seeing different parts of America is really cool.
I'm sure it's more fun in your Porsche than it is in my Honda, though.
yeah, probably. But just having like a manual car going over the Tennessee mountains and everything, I mean, that was something I'll probably never forget for the rest of my entire life. But I'm driving that, and I got an older BMW, a 735 that I'm kind of daily driving right now. They're great, automatic, big sedan car. I don't know.
What do you think the future of the automotive, I mean, normally we say performance industry, but I mean just automotive industry in general, what do you think it's going to be?
Well, it's going to get more computer automated, you know that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be almost like you're an IT technician. We're not really adjusting carburetors anymore.
No, I don't even know how to tune them. Never worked on one in my entire life.
But that was a lot of those old timers when those cars came out, fuel injection in the 70s, they kind of stopped. They just said, "I'm doing carburetors." That was probably a bad move, but maybe they were already at the end of their service career, and they could wrap it up pretty soon. But yeah, right now it is getting harder and harder. Like I said, even going back to the batteries, I mean, that's been 10 years now. You change a battery on a BMW and you got to go get the thing reflashed just because it's in transport mode right now, and the air compressor is electronic and doesn't kick on, or the electronic water pumps, and you got to bleed them out and everything. It's getting a little ridiculous because we always know mechanical parts don't really break, like hydraulic power steering units. They'll leak. Maybe the pump bearings will go bad, but they'll always pretty much work. But these electric power steering units, they're failing all the time. You're probably going to see a lot of that. The analog car is disappearing right now. So you have the choice now to continue on with the newer cars, if that's your market, or specialize in these older cars. I mean, unfortunately, we're in a throwaway society right now where an automatic transmission out of a brand new, I don't know, something that's automatic will probably just get replaced and not rebuilt anymore.
Yep. Cool. Well, how do we connect with you and your company? And I guess the show as well.
Sure. So Instagram, like a lot of our shop owners, we have a personal Instagram and a shop Instagram. I suggest doing that. Try to keep it separately. If you're running a shop Instagram, don't take a picture of what you ate or what your kids did that weekend. Try to keep it on a professional level. So my Instagram, my personal one is official Chris Stevens. We did that for the show, but yeah, official Chris Stevens. It's got a bunch of cool stuff on there. It shows a lot of shop life, cars, travel. I try to keep it pretty interesting and up to date. I do it myself, so if you have any questions, you can always DM me from there. I'd love to answer. Follow you back and all those things. Mention the show, the radio show here, and my Instagram for the shop is Eurotech Classics. It's pretty easy. I don't overpost, so I'm a good one to follow. I'll post every other day or every 3 days or something. I don't post 5 times a day. And, we're Facebook, Eurotech Classics, Chris Stevens, and, just follow. We'll just see what we're up to. And the TV show is called Garage Rehab. So we have Garage Rehab TV on Instagram and Facebook. And, of course, anything Gas Monkey Garage, Richard Rawlings, you follow him, you're pretty much following the show.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and kind of give us some insight into yourself, your business, and the show.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously.